pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
This video is a short compilation of multiple interviews that are intended to serve as a recollection of first-hand accounts of what life was like when the Martin Luther King era was in its prime, and how our interviewees feel that his efforts have affected society to date. Thank you for watching.
One of your questions was, what was it like living during the era of Martin Luther King? Times were more overtly racist. I can remember going to New York, traveling to New York with my mother, and you couldn't stay at a Howard Johnson overnight. You couldn't even stop there to eat. So we had to pick and choose along the way places that we could stop, even just to use the bathroom. So we had to end up just taking food along with us because we just didn't want to stop anywhere. That's just how bad it was. Didn't know how people were going to treat you, whatever store you stopped in. We only had one black high school in all of Henry County that we were bused to. Schools were segregated up until my 11th grade. I don't even remember knowing any white people socially until I went to work. I'm not sure if desegregation was a good thing. Our black teachers pushed us to do good, but the white people didn't push us as much. You want to know if I remember what I was doing when Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was assassinated on April the 4th, 1968 at 6:01 in the afternoon or evening time. Most likely I was home with my grandmother. We were watching TV. But what really sticks out in my mind, shortly after that, I was almost ready to graduate from high school. And St. John sent me on a trip to Cincinnati, Ohio to a Sunday school convention. But somehow I missed my ride to the bus station in Greensboro. So Uncle Charles come and got me, took me to Broadneck's funeral home over in Eaton, North Carolina. Mr. Broadneck's son took me to Greensboro to catch up with the rest of the people I was supposed to be traveling with. I don't remember who all there were, but one young girl just a little older than me that went. And I don't know who our chaperones were. But we went out there to a convention. We were staying with this preacher and his wife. I don't remember their name. But where he lived, we must have been in a hotel or something, or up on a hill or whatever. We could look down, and in the streets there were people breaking into windows in the stores and stuff and just pulling stuff out. They were just robbing the people and doing whatever they could. Things had gotten so bad that we got up under the bed because we were that scared. We didn't get to do the convention because the next day we came home, but that really was a scary time for me. I just didn't know what to expect, hadn't been around stuff going on like that because it wasn't happening here where we live. But once we got there, and all over the world, different places, they were doing all this stuff. So that was mostly what I remember after his death. The next question was, do you think Martin Luther King's dream was accomplished? No, I do not. Martin Luther King wanted it to be a world where all men would be treated equally. But we all know that's not happening. But there has been progress. We have better jobs, more opportunities, and the average black person in our era has seen a major improvement in his lifestyle. What is the best lesson I've learned from Martin Luther King's life? I know I read the rest of them, but I'm going to make sure I read this one so there won't be no misunderstanding. What I should have learned was peaceful protest and turning the other cheek. But anybody that know me knows I don't do that. But you all don't have to agree with me on that.
What was it like living during the MLK era? Do you remember what you were doing when MLK was assassinated?
What I can remember is going from an all-black school in Stoneville, North Carolina, to a segregated school in Wentworth, North Carolina. I can remember hearing the news on the radio of MLK's assassination. It was a heaviness in our family during this time. We were very devastated.
Do you think MLK's dream has been accomplished?
It has gotten a lot better, but still has a long way to go. This generation doesn't know how to stand for the right things. It is our duty that those of us that were in the Martin Luther King era to help teach and keep his dream alive.
There are questions that have been asked. What it was like living during MLK's era. It was a time of social upheaval. It was a time of people trying to get what is rightfully due to them, human dignity, the rights to live their life the way that God intended to do. Another question is asked, do you remember what I was doing at that time of his assassination? I was young, but just like him, JFK, and Robert Kennedy, and Malcolm X. What was I doing? I was in school, and it was a time of real social upheaval because we had riots, stores being looted, stores being burnt, people losing their livelihoods. And the thing was, it wasn't anybody who was losing their livelihoods, it was ours. And do I think that his dream has been accomplished? I'm quite sure that in his beliefs and how he looked at what God intended us to do and how he intended us to live, he would not be sadly disappointed, but he would be disappointed. Because instead of us coming together as one, we have taken our lives and basically said that this is me. You either accept me for who I am, or you can go about your business. We have become more selfish than more caring for one another. And the last question, what is the best lesson that I've learned from Dr. Martin Luther King? Do the best at what you do. It doesn't matter. And in his speech, he made this prophecy. It doesn't matter if you're a street sweeper. Be the best at what you do and leave and let God lead you into what you are purposed to do here on earth.
What was it like living during the MLK era?
Well, it was, to me, as a young child, there's so many things to remember because through it all, it wasn't all bad. When Dr. King got started, it wasn't all bad. I can remember going downtown, and like it was first said, we weren't allowed to go to the bathrooms. We weren't even allowed to go in the grocery stores. We weren't allowed to go to the movies because when they had the theater there, I don't know if it's in the same place now or not, but when it was there, we had to wait till white people go to the movies and they come out and then we go in. And then downtown, we couldn't go inside to sit at the counter to order soda, sandwich, whatever. They would serve it to us from the side window. And I remember this before Dr. King got started. But when he got started, it wasn't just for black people. He didn't just get a bunch of black people together and say, let's go to Washington and start a march. He started And it was began for everybody, not just one race, one color, or where we came from didn't matter. And it apparently sells some people down. A lot of people seem to me like they got excited, even though they went to jail, and they kept on marching. He would get out of jail and keep on marching. And the fear that some people had, but I think a lot of them just followed because of him, not just black people. So in all of that, there was churches in the country, in Alabama, Evergreen, Alabama. And they didn't have enough pastors to go around for every church to have their own pastor. So the pastors had to take turns. They would be at a Baptist church this Sunday, at the Methodist church the next Sunday, but we all came together. And there was an incident with a pastor. His name was Reverend Shepherd. And he began to come in the community, different communities, and inform people of why the march was going to start and what it was about. And back then it was what they call Ku Klux Klan that went one night and set he and his wife's house on fire after 12 o'clock. And when the fire department finally got to them, he had got burned more than 30-degree burns because he was trying to get her out, but he couldn't get her out. And when he finally got her out, and they ended up in the hospital, she didn't make it. She passed away. And then the Ku Klux Klans was under sheets. They weren't dressed up in three-piece suits. They would have sheets to cover their face and part of the upper part of their bodies. And we didn't understand as children, because it didn't make no sense. But anyway, there was some good came out of it. There was good came out of it.
What was it like, or what was your experience during the Martin Luther King era?
Living in the Martin Luther King area when I was young was a great experience because Martin Luther King was a preacher, and he was a great speaker. He was doing many things, but a lot of things that I don't remember living in my area. But what I was doing when he was marching, it was kind of hard for me to remember all of this, but I remember I was sitting on the floor. And my experience when he was running for, when he was doing all of this marching, I was sitting on the floor, and I remember when he got shot, he was out on the balcony. He was speaking. He was a great speaker. And everybody seemed like they listened to what he was saying. And when he got shot out on the balcony, everybody began to holler. They began to cry because it was unreal, because that's what the white people was doing. They didn't, and I believe he was sent by God. And I believe that his dream has come true. I'm not a long speaker, I'm not a great speaker, but I believe his dream has come true. Because he said that every little child, a white child, would join hands in hand together, and we would all be as one. He spoke with great compassion. And the best lesson that I have learned during his life and during my lifetime, that he was a man of God, and he was for the right. He didn't like the wrong, because we was treated disrespectful. And we could not, as it was foresaid, that we couldn't go in the restaurant. We had to go on the side and get our food served. And there was a time when we couldn't go and sit in the theater. We had to go in the back door. We couldn't go in the front door. We had to go in the back door, and we had to sit way up high upstairs to see the movie, when the whites could always sit down below so they could enjoy better. And there was a time when the Ku Klux Klans would, black people couldn't go out much at night, because there was Ku Klux Klans always out ready to get them. But Martin Luther King, he was for the right. He didn't like no wrong. He tried to treat everybody right. He marched for our rights. And he wasn't for wrong. He loved everybody, and he wanted everybody to love us, and he wanted respect. But he had his sermon, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. And when he was killed, it was very sad, because he wasn't for wrong, he was always for right. He wanted everybody to be treated right. But when we went to school, we had to sit in the back of the bus, or we didn't have a ride to the bus. But during his era, he made a great difference, a big difference.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.